Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we're joined by Ted French. Ted is a website builder, and he walks us through a website that he started on an age domain and sold about 12 months later for over $200,000. He's a one-man show. He built the entire website himself. He wrote all the content for the website himself, and he walks us through from ground zero all the way until the final day when he sold it. Some of the things that Ted is doing really, really well and that he highlights is, first off, his work on an age domain. He's been building sites on age domains for quite a while now. So he shares a lot of great insights and tips into how to pick an age domain, how to recreate the site in the beginning on an age domain, how to evaluate if it's working or not, what to do with the site in its first couple of months. It was really great. A lot of people are turning to age domains nowadays to get sites off the ground because newer sites take a little bit longer than they used to start getting rankings. So Ted walks through that really, really well. He also just has a great strategy and a great approach that he outlines really clearly how he produces content, what type of content he's producing, how he does his keyword research. And it's a really simple, but I'd say fairly profound strategy that everybody can follow along in. Ted has a really cool approach where I'm summarizing, but basically he just produces a ton of content at the beginning. And then once the site starts to get some real rankings, he then goes back and systematically updates all that content and dials it in. So we talk about the content creation process, we talk about the updating process, and just all the details around each of those. There's a lot to learn there. Like I said, he ends up selling the site for multiple six figures. Great exit for him, and something that I think really is very achievable. Obviously, he has a lot of experience at site building. He's been doing it for a while. But if you're one of those who's really looking for a nice, succinct story of motivation, here's someone who is able to take something out of nothing and 12 months later go on and sell it. A lot of great strategies here, a lot of great tips, and I hope you really enjoy the interview with Ted. Today's show is sponsored by Ahrefs, an all-in-one SEO toolset. Do you want more Google traffic to your website? Are you struggling to rank and not sure what to do about it? Is the idea of hiring an SEO agency outside of your budget? Well, there's a better way. It's called Ahrefs Webmaster Tools, and it's free. This amazing resource will audit your website and prioritize the needed changes you need to make to improve your search rankings. Imagine what you could achieve as more traffic starts to roll in. Beyond more leads and more sales, Ahrefs Webmaster Tools is going to help you analyze backlinks from other sites. It's going to help you find important people who are referencing your content. This could lead to future partnerships and collaborations. If the idea of getting Google to work for you sounds confusing, Ahrefs also has a good number of tutorials on search engine optimization. I personally have used many of them to help myself and my websites. Isn't it time that you started getting a little bit more search traffic? Visit ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools and get this free tool working for you today. We've included a link in the show notes, but again, that's ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools. Thanks again for sponsoring today's episode. How many times have you wanted to throw your computer at the wall because, well, SEO, it can be frustrating. And no matter how hard you try, you're still not showing up where you want to on Google. So maybe you throw money at the problem by outsourcing your SEO needs, and then you've ended up wasting money, and you're still stuck in SERP limbo, unwillingly hanging out on page 2 or 3, far away from potential customers. Meet Surfer, an AI-driven content intelligence tool that takes the guesswork out of SEO. With Surfer, you can do keyword research in minutes, create a 360-degree content strategy with their planner, write an article while checking your SEO content score in the editor, and monitor your progress with their audit tool post-publish. Let Surfer's AI focus on getting you to page 1 while you focus on growing your business and making your customers happy. Visit surferseo.com to stop worrying and start ranking. Welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today, I am joined by Ted French. Ted, thanks for coming in.
Hey, how's it going, mate? You all right?
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Really good. Really good. We were able to connect. This is another one of those interviews we do sometimes where we're all in different parts of the world, and so we kind of had to line our times up. But here we are. It's nighttime where you are, morning time where we are, and I'm looking forward to a great interview today.
Yeah, sleep soon for me. It's 8:15 here.
Perfect. Well, good. Hey, so before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of today, why don't you catch us up on your background, especially as it relates to website building and what got you here today?
Cool. So I started in 2015. I went back to uni. Before that, I was working in just dead end jobs. I went back to university, started studying marketing. At the same time, just started looking into SEO and flipping niche sites. I ended up buying one on Flipper back in end of 2015, start of 2016. I flipped that quickly for like a couple $1,000s profit. And then since then, I've kind of been hooked on it since then. So since I was doing it while I was at university part-time, I left, got a job working in PPC. So I worked there for 18 months or 12 to 18 months. Whole time I'm still building and flipping niche sites on the side. Then mid 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, I quit my job then and just went full-time back on my own portfolio sites.
So 2015 was kind of your first dip into website building. And
yeah, I never heard of it before then.
Well, yeah, you took a bit of a different path. I mean, I think most people start their own site and they kind of, flail along, and that usually that first site, I feel like having interviewed so many people, that first site fails, and by site 2 or 3, things change. You bought a site on FlipUp, which is already a scary proposition, and you actually turned it for a profit.
Yeah, not a lot. So I bought it for $3,500 and I sold it for $7,000.
That's double.
I held it for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then in that time I was just practicing. I literally just changed the theme, added some more content, changed the layout a tiny bit. Then I started panicking, like I've just spent like all this money on this website. I was like, I need to sell it, so I put it back on Flipper, and it sold for more. Basically, that was it.
Wow, that's
so it was a lot of luck with like a pinch of. In reality, looking back now, I didn't really do anything to the site to justify an increase in price, but at the time, it was enough to kind of keep me interested.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and a lot of people again get the bug. They get bit by this website bug, but it's you got a little bit of success along with the bug, which is great, and must have fueled a lot of what you were doing. So 2020 pandemic hits, and you were working in a PPC agency. How much do you think working at an agency helped or shaped a bit of what you were doing with websites?
Nothing major. I mean, to be honest, I worked like it was a strictly PPC agency. And the reason I started working there was just because I wanted to learn a little bit more around running paid ads at scale. It's really easy for a beginner to start a website with low funds, so they can buy hosting for $50 and a domain for $10. But you can't really get that experience with paid ads running at a higher level. So I really wanted to get hands-on with accounts that had thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in spend. So yeah, I worked there for just between a year and I can't remember now, it's like 14 or 16 months or something like that, just helping. So I was working with e-commerce and lead generation. I only got that job because I was flipping sites beforehand. So when I went to the job interview, I showed them what I was doing with SEO and building sites. And there was like 500 other applicants or something stupid. And I ended up getting that job because of that experience. They're very related, but at the same time, you don't need to know that PPC stuff, if that makes sense. It helps, and it kind of shapes you overall knowledge-wise. But I wouldn't say that I learned a massive amount in that job that helped me since I've quit my job.
It's funny. I for my day job, I run a marketing agency, and when I first started the agency, I thought, oh yeah, we're going to be doing SEO, PPC, a couple other things. And as time has developed, because they're so different in nature, we just refer out the PPC to other agencies and only do the SEO side of things, along with some other things. But PPC it's a funny line in the sand. It's so different. It's a bit not worth doing both unless you're a pretty large agency.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of, like, in London specifically, there's been more PPC agencies like popping up that specialize in just that, because especially e-commerce with PPC, when you're running shopping ads and stuff, it can get quite complex. Google has made loads of efforts over the last like 5 years or however long to add loads of documentation to make it easy for anyone to do it. But I wouldn't say that I'm an expert at it. But from working with experts that have been working on these e-commerce accounts, it can get really complicated that you would need a specialist.
Yeah. So 2020, you leave the PPC agency, and that's really where I think the story we're going to dive into today kicks off. I don't want to, I don't want to cut to the chase, but maybe so we can understand where we're going, summarize this website that you were working on and what you ended up exiting it for, and then we'll backtrack back to the beginning and kind of walk through how you did this.
Okay, so I put the website up in April, just while I was in the point of thinking about quitting my job. I put more than one website up, so I put 4 or 5 websites up at the same time. And it can be like that sometimes, where you get caught between 2 things, you don't know what to do. I put the website up, I put maybe 15 articles on it, 10 to 15 articles on it. And then by June to July time, one of the articles on the site just kind of clicked. So there's kind of a point where after you let content age a little bit, you'll just see like an uptick. And when I saw that uptick, I just kind of went all in on it. So I quit my job. I scaled up the content, all mainly from writing myself. So because I was working 40 hours a week, I just took that 40 hours a week and just spent it all writing instead. So July through to October, I added maybe 300 to 400 articles to the site, all based it within the same niche. You don't see anything straight away, so I saw nothing at all until November. It picked up a little bit just in time for Black Friday. So I added the ads and added Mediavine to the site in literally just before Black Friday. So December, the revenue was at $5,000 or $6,000, and then January, February, March, the site was at around $7,000 between Mediavine and the affiliate income. And then I sold the site in April for, I can't say the exact price, but around $200,000.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Cheers.
There's so many fun facets to that story. I mean, the fact that you, again, I'm just kind of summarizing, went all in on this site and really quit your job to get the time back to put into it.
Yeah.
Wrote all the content yourself. That's a marathon of a sprint. So that's the second point. Didn't even have it monetized until 5-6 months in, and then sold it basically a couple months later for multiple 6 figures.
Yeah, it was a mix of the right niche in just necessity, really. I think that it's hard to imagine adding 400,000 or 500,000 words of content to a site. If you're going to outsource that, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So you either have to do that, or you have to write it yourself. There's not really any in between of that. If you want to scale up that quickly, they're really the only 2 options. So I just thought I had to do it, basically.
I was going to say, so you decided to write it.
Yeah. I've spoken to quite a lot of people since then that have literally done the same thing, but years, 2, 3, 4 years ago, whatever. And it's just trying to get that first bigger flip. And then you can start reinvesting money back into other sites and paying people to write content. But for me, I was paying someone to write for my sites more than what I'm earning at my job. And it just didn't make sense at all.
So let's go back to where that site started. And I know from, I think you and I got connected through Twitter, and you talk a lot on Twitter about your use of age domains to grow sites and that sort of thing. So talk about how you use an age domain on this site. And, I guess we'll start walking into the idea of using age domains, because I know a lot of our listeners will have a lot of questions about that.
I've been using age domains almost exclusively now since 2017-18. There's a massive thing between people say age domains, expired domains, expiring domains, deleted domains. And depending on where you read it or where you look, someone will use a different terminology.
Yeah, they'll get used interchangeably, even though they're
Yeah.
dramatically different in practice.
And even in the time that I've started doing it, so when I was looking at it in 2016, 2017, people would call it expiring domains when really they were referring to expired domains, etc. Basically, what I'm referring to is domains that haven't been renewed. So the previous owner doesn't renew them, they drop, they don't get deleted. So it's before the deleted stage, which at the deleted stage, they can be re-registered again. So anyone can re-register them. But at that point, there's a lot of people that build softwares to pick them up when they're deleted. So when they become deleted, you've really got no chance of getting it because people are building these softwares to pick them up immediately. But if you're with GoDaddy or with certain other registrars, they will auction off that domain before it even gets to that stage. So what I do is I buy them in this point that they are expired, but not fully deleted yet.
So basically, to use a very rudimentary example, let's say I get an email, hey, your domain is going to expire in the next 30 days, which I get those all the time, right? And so you quickly, sometimes frantically, pop in and renew it. But let's say that you didn't renew it and 30 days came and went. There's basically like a grace period where the site enters this holding tank you're referring to, which is where you acquire them. Before they get officially deleted, the website goes down and then they hit the general population.
The website will still be down. So at that point,
it'll still go down while it's
it's kind of after that grace. So you have that grace period, and then there's a kind of a extended grace period, another period between them.
A second grace period.
So it's another 30 days or another 14 days or however long. That I'm not really looking for ones that people have accidentally let go, if that makes sense. I'm more looking for companies that have gone bust, companies that, especially like software companies or etc. A lot of those will invest a lot of money into digital PR and they'll try and get the brand out there. And while they're doing that, they obtain massive links. Then 5 years down the line, the business goes bust. They don't need the domain anymore. No one really cares about it. They're the kind of ones that I'm looking for.
Now, why is that specific time period so valuable, or why is that so intriguing for you? You talked about how once they get further, they get kind of gobbled up by software and these scrapers. Are there any other advantages to utilizing domains at that point in time that you're getting them?
I've used both. So I've used them at all stages. Even the ones that eventually get deleted, they don't lose their links, or they don't lose their power or anything like that. The only real thing is that there's like a kind of resets the age. It really doesn't, in terms of, it does technically, if that makes sense, but the links are still there and they still count. So I've picked up a load of domains that have gone past that point just to test it out. And they pick up pretty much the same way. But if you get them before they're deleted, there's not really any way for Google or anyone to know that you've even picked it up. A lot of the time, it might say it's dropped, but that could happen to anyone that owns a website at some point. It could easily be a mistake or an accident. So I like to put the site back up as soon as possible in a similar fashion, leave it for a few months, so it kind of blends together. So it doesn't really even look like it's a different website. And it could genuinely be someone that's just changed the whole direction of their website.
So I want to ask you about that. Is that what you did with this site that we're talking about from 2020?
Definitely.
So you grabbed that site and you, sorry if I'm going into too many details, but you basically put the same site back up for Google to recrawl and receive. Is it same content, or are you using archive.org?
It's the content. It's not. So this one specifically, actually, I didn't put exactly the same site up. There was some kind of legal issues that I wouldn't advise anyone to put those sites exactly as they were before, because technically that's someone else's content.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like technically that is still their content, but they don't own the domain name. So you put the site up. With this one, I just put it up on WordPress, put the site up, but you have to recreate the URLs.
Yeah.
So if say you have the main domain name, and then you have domain name / whatever about, or /
contact
business, / business. Mm-hmm. Then in the past, I use Ahrefs, look at best by links. So see which pages have got the most links going to them, and rebuild those pages with very similar content. Those pages kind of were still indexed in Google, so they have a history in Google already. With newer sites that I'm putting up, so I put up a new site the end of last year, it can take months and months and months to even get indexed or for Google to even think about ranking your website. With these sites, because it's been up for years already, they've got links, they've got big backlinks from years ago. It's a lot quicker.
So why not, devil's advocate, and I hear people doing this, why not take the domain that you acquired and just build the site that you want and set up 301 redirects from the old pages? Let's say, for example, it's a software company that went out of business and they have their old landing page, not the home page, but a landing page where they sold one of their services. You're not going to be building that software and selling that service. It had a lot of links. You 301 it to something that's applicable, that's on your new site. Why not go that route right away?
I'll do that. Yeah, I do that too. It really depends on the site. A lot of them, some of them might be older sites, so I would do that anyway. If it's /.html at the end or anything like that, I'm just going to recreate that in WordPress anyway. With the sites that I put up, it's mainly because it's mainly our laziness. So you can use a tool to kind of rebuild the old site within like a few minutes. So you can use a tool called Archivarics.
Okay, what is that tool? I got to write that down.
It's called Archivarics. And basically what it does is, the Wayback Machine. So the Wayback Machine just caches what the website looked like a year ago or 5 years ago, whatever. You can use that. It will download, it will give you an export of what the site looked like a year ago or 2 years ago. Then all you have to do is upload the files to File Manager, and they just put the old site back up again. And then you can, so I'll put that up and leave it. Then I'll come back to it and change it. Now, I've definitely done it both ways, where I use Archivarics to put the old site back up, or I just build it straight on WordPress and do like you said with the 301 redirects. In my experience, I don't think there's a massive difference there. I don't think it makes that much difference which one you do. For me, I do the Archivarics one specifically because I'm quite lazy, so I just put the sites back up, leave them for a couple months, wait for the traffic to pick up.
That's worth the price of admission right there, if you're listening. Second off, I don't necessarily think I would call that laziness. I mean, like you said, you had started multiple sites back in this time period. It sounds like that's something you do, and you're kind of waiting until one of them,
it's a click. In my mind, I just think of it as a click.
Right. One of those is going to click, and you're trying to find the lowest barrier to get to the point where one of those sites clicks. And that sounds like a really potentially good strategy to keep the site going without having to put in a lot of time and effort and money into the site when you don't know if that's going to be one you're actually going to work on down the road.
Yeah, exactly. I would never buy an expired domain or an age domain and spend $100,000 or $50,000 or $10,000 on content straight away. That's just not the tactic that I would use. I would post content on it, like I said, 15 posts, and see how it reacts to it. Just because the old site, it's known for what it is in terms of relevancy. So if Google knows the old site is around gaming controllers, and you rebuild the site around gaming controllers, you should be fine. But if you rebuild it around something else, Google might not see it the same way.
Right.
So I try and stick very strictly within the same niche.
Is that what you did with this site? You stuck very tightly within the same niche?
It was within the broad niche. So I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but it would be like it would be under the umbrella of, say, travel. The old one was travel, this was travel, but it was like holidays and skiing. It's not really exactly the same, or skiing and some holidays. Mm-hmm. They were very similar, but that's exactly what I do. Is I put up I put up 15 articles on the site, kind of covering a few different topics, and then I see which ones click. And then with this site, I saw which ones click. One of the articles that I put up just kind of flipped up onto the second or first page. And as soon as I saw that, I think, well, Google must like the site enough to put me on the first page. So I just doubled down on, or more than doubled down on, that similar content related to that around this whole topic, and fleshed that whole area out.
It's funny because it's a very similar strategy to what you should do with a news site, that's not built on an aged domain, right? You kind of just publish content in a couple of different areas, and then you watch which one does well. I was talking with Spencer about his kind of case study site, owntheyard.com. We were talking a couple months back, and the big joke with that site, or at least something he used to talk about that, is he never thought he'd end up writing about squirrels and all these squirrel topics in your backyard, but he wrote a squirrel article. It was one of many articles he published, and then lo and behold, it's number one, grabbing the featured snippet, all this traffic. So he just went down the rabbit hole and wrote about all the different topics on squirrels. Who would have thought? But it's a strategy used with news sites too.
Yeah, 100%. But especially with this style of site, with content sites, if I write 20 articles, I'm not 100% sure that all of them are going to be ranking first. I'm not sure how they're all going to perform straight away. And I don't think 99% of people are, which is probably the biggest advantage for me of building niche sites, as opposed to like you have clients, right? You're working with clients. They come to you and say, I need to rank number one for this keyword. That's it. With a niche site.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah, this is why I'm not really attracted to working with that kind of stuff, because you can build a site around anything. And for a lot of people, that's the hardest part, is picking the niche. When really it is actually it is super important, obviously, but it's the biggest advantage that you have, is that you can create a site around literally anything and target literally any keyword with display ads. You can monetize anything. So even if it's not affiliate keywords, you can monetize literally anything.
So with this site, you wrote about a couple different topics. You said you put about 15 articles online. And how many months until things started clicking, and would you say in your experience, your timeline with this site was typical or maybe atypical? And again, I'm just trying to ask questions I think the audience is probably thinking in their heads, hey, if I start using an aged domain, how long am I realistically looking at? How much of that sandbox that we get put into with news sites am I potentially going to skip?
With the news site, in my experience, unless you're building a lot of links to the site, you're not going to rank for anything for like 8 to 12 months. Like that first 6 months, you might see nothing, and it's so disheartening if you put up a brand new site and you add a lot of good content to it, and you wait 4 or 5 months, nothing, 6 months, nothing, and you really have to wait 8 to 12 months. With an aged domain, it can be as soon as a few weeks, but it depends. It does depend on. So with this site, I put it up in April, and by the end of June, so it was around 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. That's where there were keywords that were ranking before that, and pages were indexing, but that's where I really saw the uptick in those particular articles that I'd added. And then so between June, July, August, September, October time, I added a ton of content then, and then it was another. Yeah, it must have been 8 to 10 weeks after each of the articles were written, if that makes sense. So say I wrote it in July. It wasn't until September that it started ranking. And say if I wrote it in September, it wasn't until November, the end of November, that it actually popped up. So it's like around 2 months.
Okay, that's
and for me, in my experience, it's a lot to do with the power or the backlinks the site had and the authority. The less authority it has, the longer it's going to take. The more authority it has, it can be as quick as 2 months, or even less than that. But you're not going to see the full effects of it, if that makes sense. So even with an aged domain, if I put up the article, then I might be able to get it on the first page when it gets indexed, if it's authoritative enough in that niche. But it's still not going to rank for all of the different variations of the keyword, if that makes sense. So it might rank for that exact match keyword, but over the next 6 months, it will still pick up a ton more keywords over the time.
Whatever you're comfortable sharing, like what kind of metrics did this aged domain you used have?
It's the metrics are a big one, because the DRDA, trust flow, etc., they can be so easily manipulated that it's not something to follow religiously.
So what are you looking for then? What constitutes a good aged domain then, I guess, if it's not DR? That's the easy one.
So if I'm searching for domains, I typically put the DR at 15 or more.
Okay.
That doesn't rule out, there's still going to be loads that are more than 15 that suck. But anything less than 15 is probably not going to be good, right? I'm not really looking for, I see a lot of people talking about like hand registering domains, expired domains and stuff like that. It's probably not going to have enough power to make a difference. So I'm looking for big links, what I call big links, which is anything you can't really pay for. There's the links that you're going to get from digital PR,
Journalism
Forbes,
links.
Business Insider, HuffPost, all of those ones. I guess you can pay for them if you want to pay thousands of dollars to PR agencies, but you can't directly go and buy them. And aside from that, definitely niche relevant stuff. So if it's a travel site and it's got links from travel bloggers, even if they're not the most powerful sites, I'm still looking for that as well.
So this site took a little while to get going, but it sounds like you saw enough in it to, and again, I'm just looking back at my notes, you saw enough in it early on to quit your job and go all in. I mean, talk about that. That's crazy, I guess, in many ways. You know what you're doing, so there's that. You have that going for you, but still, you're at this PPC agency and you saw enough in this site, but it was clearly well before it was monetized that you wanted to go all in. I'm just, that's amazing.
It was mainly the thought process that you can just get another job, to be honest. Like, if I just said to myself, I'll quit, I'll give myself a year to get, I already had sites, so I have maybe 5 or 6 sites that are not doing anything amazing. They're just kind of ticking along. And I thought I'd give myself a year to grow this site. If in a year's time it hasn't worked out and the site is doing nothing, then that's fine. I'll find another job. And it's if you can stick to that regimental posting again and again and again and again and again, and you know how to do keyword research, then it can be. It's quite difficult not to grow a site if you're stuck in that strict regimen of posting hundreds of articles over a year. You will be able to grow it, but you have to do keyword research is the main thing for me. Like keyword research and sticking within the same niche, interlinking all those articles together, they're the most important parts for me.
You talked online about how you would write a lot. You just really spent most of your time that summer writing content and producing, thousands and thousands of words every single day. Yeah. I mean, does writing come naturally to you, or do you have any tips for people who are kind of struggling with routinely posting content to their site because they're hitting a block,
It's like a churn. It's a bit of a churn because a lot of the articles become like similar. What I typically do is I'll cluster the keywords first. So I'll find the main keyword, then I'll find the subheadings beforehand and break it down like that. So I'll find the main keyword, find out what my subheadings are going to be beforehand. Mm-hmm. And these are not majorly long articles, which is a massive thing as well, is that I usually start at the bare minimum, 800 to 1,000 word articles. So with this site, I would start with a 1,000 word article if it was, this is general stuff. I'm talking about how to do this, check this, what is this? Right. If it's a review, then it will be a little bit longer, 1,500 words maybe. But I'm not going for 3,000 or 4,000 word articles just because this is just my perspective on it, is that there's no point doing it if you don't have to. I can always go back to that article later. With any article, pretty much, you can change everything about it. If the URL, aside from the URL, you don't really want to 301 and change the URL later. But aside from that, you can change anything on the page. So I'm just trying to get the content up. I was trying to get up as soon as possible, 3 or 4 articles a day, break it down into subheadings, 200 word subheadings, just explaining really simple stuff, not like expert stuff, nothing that I'm like majorly experienced in, just enough to know more than the average person, I guess. And just breaking it down. With short articles, I feel it's a bit easier to write anyway. If you're trying to write 3,000 or 4,000 words, it can be difficult.
Right.
But because the articles are shorter, so I would go back to it. So I went back to all the articles later and edited them. But I'll get to that in a minute.
I think it's interesting to hear you talk about that because these types of queries can potentially be answered without as much, research and as much thought process, and you don't have to connect so many concepts together. I mean, a 3 or 4,000 word article, you're going to have to be connecting different concepts and almost telling a story. I mean, I'm being a little dramatic, but whereas with the 800 word queries, it's like, hey, how do you do this? And so you can sit down and pour yourself a cup of coffee and just crank out exactly how to do this. And you can kind of move on and be done. And you're making progress, right? Like you kind of give yourself the ability to say, okay, I already wrote one article today. Like, sweet, let's do this, and
That's
I can see
exactly
it.
what I would do. Is I would wake up in the morning, try and just blitz through that first article. Well, no, actually, so I write all the intros at the same time. So I
Okay.
would do the intros and I'll do the conclusion separately, which they're kind of generic-y kind of stuff anyway. But I would work through the bulk of the content, and I would try and get that first article done within an hour or two, as quickly as I could. And then that kind of gives you the motivation for the rest of the day that you can actually do it. There are times, and this is not for me all the time, there are times where I go through writing and I don't want to write, or I don't feel like I can write, or I don't feel like I can write 4,000 words a day. Um, and I think most people go through that, but a lot of it is focus for me. Like I had to get rid of my phone, get rid of any distractions, just because you always want that instant gratification, right? Of being social with someone and speaking to someone else. When in reality, with this project, I just had to grind it out with those couple months, get that done, and then I can look at doing other stuff.
Let's talk a little bit about keyword research. You mentioned how vital it is. I'm guessing, given the type of content you've now been talking about, that you're going for kind of longer tail keywords that are a little bit less competitive. Again, I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but I'm just, from hearing you talk about it, sounds like you're not going for the really big competitive terms necessarily. How are you doing that keyword research and finding the types of content that you want to produce?
Yeah, I'm never really going for anything competitive. Like even with these age domains, if you're going for something competitive, you're going to have to build links to it. And it's going to be, it sounds stupid, but it's going to be more competitive. Like people are going to try, if you get the snippet, you might be taking thousands of visitors away from someone's site. So they're going to try and snatch it back straight away. If you can find really low competition keywords that haven't really been answered, and there's not a lot of people answering them, or there's not a lot of competition there, there should be some competition, but not like, I don't want the whole page full of affiliates or the whole page full of niche sites. Just a couple, like a handful. Most of the keyword research that I would do, it sounds really long to explain it. Basically, I just put the main term in Ahrefs. So I got another site. So for example, I would say telescope. I would put best telescope in and look at I don't really care about the KD or the keyword difficulty either. I'm literally actually looking at the SERPs. So I literally search it in Google and look at the SERPs. If there's too many big sites in the top 3, then I'm not even going to go ahead with it. So say it's best telescope for under $500. I'll put that in the SERPs. If that one's quite competitive in terms of there's a lot of affiliates for it, but if I think I can rank for it and there's not like 3 big magazines there, which like the Independent, the Guardian, BBC, whatever these big ones are that you are really going to struggle outranking, then I'll go ahead with it. But it really is like a manual view of it. Like I'm literally going through every keyword and saying, is this okay? Is this okay? While I'm doing that at the same time, I'm also listing all the competitors, like the competitor sites. So while I do that, I add the competitor sites to an Excel file. So say I'll go through the first 100 keywords. If I can get 100 keywords, while I'm analyzing that, I'm adding all the competition to a file. And then I'll go through those later and look at all the keywords they're ranking for in Ahrefs, see if I can pick out some more keywords there.
I mean, it makes so much sense in the world. It sounds like by the time you're done deep diving just a single topic, you have a list of competitors, you have a list of topics, you can go look at those competitors, you can go find more topics, you can find more competitors from those topics. And it just seems like you could just go down this rabbit trail for until you have more than enough keywords to write for a topic.
Yeah, it really depends on the niche. So I always start out really broad, right? If it's tech, if it's travel, and you're staying within anything travel, you're going to have tens of thousands of articles to write. If it's travel in Asia, you're going to have thousands of articles to write. If it's travel in Thailand, you're going to have probably still thousands, but less than Asia altogether, right? And it really depends on how big you want to grow the site. Most of the sites I'm just building with branded domain names, or I'm looking for branded domain names that could be evolved or could be grown out eventually past the initial niche. So with this site, I put the articles on there and it was all within one subtopic. So it would be, say it was travel in Thailand. So all I would do is look for keywords, travel in Thailand, build up. There's not as many for that as there is for Asia or there is for the world, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And build out the keywords based on that. Then after the competitor analysis, I might have a few hundred keywords to go after, which is enough for me. It's enough to build the basis of the site. So with this site that I built, I plan to write that. I finished that writing in maybe October. Then when things start ranking, you can use tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush to analyze your site, analyze what the competition are doing, see the keywords you're ranking for, see the keywords they're ranking for, what you're missing out at. It's a lot easier to pick holes and fill the holes in the shit. For me, I'm just getting some kind of base, which is usually going to be, for a niche site, the smallest that I would do it is 30 to 50 articles, but ideally hundreds of articles. Especially if it's around these kind of topics where it's 800 words, 1,000 words. Yeah, with this one, I think I must have listed maybe 300 keywords to go after.
Wow. Okay. And so that kind of got you through the first couple of months, right? So we're kind of nearing, just going back to our timeline that we were talking about, that kind of gets you to probably out the fall, Yeah. And what kind of traffic were you starting to see after this content sprint? And then I guess the second question is, why did you wait to monetize it until, I think you said November? Why not monetize sooner, out of the gate?
Yeah, so I had affiliate on it from the start. So it was affiliate, but those articles weren't really ranking. And what else I was also doing, so I say that I wasn't using anything from the PPC job, but you can set up, it's called Dsa Campaign. I don't know if you know what that is, but essentially it's automated. So all it is, you just give Google the URL and you write the meta description, but they'll kind of crawl through your content and serve the ad based on what's there. So I was using these ads and I was kind of just trying to keep it level. So say the site in October, it earned a couple £100 or about $400. I spent that in ads as well, just getting people onto the site.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mediavine, I didn't have that until November. I've got sites on a Zoic already. So typically, I say go to a Zoic until you're up to 50,000. 50,000, apply for Mediavine. Then you get up to 100,000 or past that, you have the option to stay with Mediavine or switch to AdThrive. But Zoic can be annoying. It can take a day or two to even get those ads on the site. You need to change all the DNS records and stuff like that. With this site, I kind of wanted to grow it as quickly as I could, and put Mediavine on it straight away, because they kind of do everything for you. Once you're there, it's like a full service. With the Zoic, it's a little bit more hands-on. So I thought, I'm just going to try and get it there straight away.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because it can take some time, and I mean, you were in a content production. You were producing content like crazy. So, what kind of traffic was the site getting as you led up into kind of this Black Friday period where you started really making some real money on it?
So I would say October it was around 10,000. November it picked up towards the end of the month, so like maybe 30 or 40,000. December 100,000. January, February, March 250,000. 200 to 250,000.
Wow.
And it really is like that, where it's like, and this is all from the content that was front loaded before then. And then during those months, so November, December, January, I went back, I used Surfer. So they're all kind of similar: Surfer, Phrase, Market Views. Go back to the content and edit it, and literally just tweaking it, it has the word count of all the competition there. It has the whatever entities that you want to add in. So say it's around Nintendo, and it'll say you should mention Mario, you should mention Mushroom Kingdom, Donkey Kong, or whatever, and adding those in just to try and get into the top 3. I'm not always going for that number 1 spot, but just doing that tweaking with a tool like Surfer, that there's so much you can do with it. It will just analyze all the competition and give you kind of the average of what you should be aiming for. And like I said, I write the articles quite short anyway. So say if I was ranking 5th for something with 800 words, it might say to me, add another 600 words, because everyone else is writing 1,500 words. You're only writing 800 words. But say the top 3 of all 1,500 words, my article is 1,000 words. You need to add 500 words basically. And these are the words you should include in there. So I would just go back, work through it, add it in where it makes sense. I'm not kind of stuffing stuff in for no reason, where it makes sense for the reader.
Really smart approach. So basically you kind of front loaded all this content, and you did, I mean, for lack of a better term, I'll say MVP, minimally viable product. Like you're just cranking out 800 to 1,000 words, answering the topic, moving on, not worrying about all the other stuff. And then when articles start to rank, and when you're starting to see yourself in the top 10, which we know sitting at position 8 is awesome because it feels good, but terrible because you're getting very little traffic, even though you're at spot 8, that's when you're going back and using a tool to actually kind of systematically make updates based on, what is actually ranking at that point. How much did you shift from writing new content into updating old content? Like, was it 100%?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow. Okay. So
I wasn't adding, in January, I may have added 10 or 20 articles or something like that, but nothing crazy. It was mainly just going back, optimizing the content, updating the date, maybe adding imagery, whatever Surfer says, basically. So they might say the top 3 have 5 images, you've got no images. You should add some images, and then with the alt text or the keyword or something similar, that can make a massive difference. Although it doesn't seem like it's a massive difference. That's kind of what took the traffic in December from 100K to 200K, 250K, was just going back, optimizing stuff, trying to steal snippets, typically by just seeing what is there in the snippet and replicating that, but better. So say it's a typical question answer snippet. I would try and just provide a better answer with more technical terms that that really explains the keyword or the search term. So say it's how to clean the garage. I might say with some kind of specific cleaning product, or something that Google, I know they're looking for because I'm looking through the rest of the competition, what they're writing about. Yeah, and that kind of made a bit of a difference as well, stealing those snippets.
I mean, you're a little bit, I'll just say, like, the strategy you brought, whether 100% focused by design or whether you just kind of natively are this strategic, it's really
it's not strategy.
It
is, but it's not. It was more born out of like logic.
Do you realize the focus, though, that I think is perhaps, I don't think it's the whole reason why this project was such a success, but you got an age domain, you had a really purposeful plan, you got several, you published 10 to 15 articles on each of them, you waited till one spiked or one caught in Google's eyes, you went all in on it, you have a very clear strategy about producing 800 to 1,000 word articles about a certain type of keyword research you do, you pump a ton of content out. Once the site starts doing well with traffic, you stop pumping new content out and you turn all your attention towards optimizing. It's really, really, it's a really clear and succinct strategy. I haven't heard someone so clearly have that kind of focus. It's great. I want to call it out because I think people could really benefit from having more focus when it comes to what they're doing on the site instead of kind of bumbling around. I'm guilty of that too.
I think the biggest part of it is actually writing the content. And this is why with shorter articles, it's a little bit easier to write them. But being brutally honest with people. I get people that I'm speaking to asking how to write more, how can I write more? You just have to knuckle down and do it, and it's so much harder if you have a day job or something like that. But you will, if you can write one article a day or 2 articles a week at the weekend, even if you can do that, it's just the consistency of getting that part done, and then going back to it later and optimizing stuff is a little bit more relaxed. It's a little bit more enjoyable. Like, that's the part of it that I don't really enjoy, is that 3-4 months of you've got to get this content up. All aside from that, planning out the content, doing the keyword research, tweaking bits here and there, imagery, anything like that, that's a little bit more enjoyable. And especially, obviously, when you start seeing results, it's more motivating to carry on. But especially if you're building on a new site or even an age domain, it's that those initial months are they're really difficult to get through. And I don't think most people give up before they get through that period, because you don't see results like that. You don't really see results within the next week or the day. If you go to work, you get your salary at the week or the end of the month. With this, you kind of just have to write for months and months and months and keep faith, which is not that easy.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's really encouraging. It's really encouraging. I think that at the end of the day, no matter whether someone has an hour, 8 hours, a full week, a full month, whatever it is, the consistency and the it's encouraging to hear the results that came from it. How much did you ever end up doing any backlink building on this site?
Yeah, I built like 10 to 12 links. So while I'm doing this, what I do is like I said to you, I'm manually going in and looking at the keywords, which is the big thing, that another big advantage that kind of we have building content sites and niche sites, is that we're only building sites with maybe hundreds of articles on. Mm-hmm. If you work it with clients and stuff, some of those, they might have e-commerce stuff that with thousands of pages and URLs and stuff, and you don't really have time to do that manual research like that. You really need some kind of automated research to build thousands of pages. If you're building a niche site with 200 pages, you do have time to go in there and look at each of the keywords manually and judge whether you can rank for it or not. And for me, yeah, like I said, it's kind of like a 3 and out rule. There's 3 there that are too big. If it's LifeWire, Tech Radar, all of those big kind of sites, then I'm not even going to target it. But like I said, while I'm doing that, I'm adding all the competitors that are ranking there to a list, and then afterwards I use that list to put the competitors in Ahrefs, and then I'll look at their backlinks. So I'll look at their referring domains and see which ones I want, and then I'll outreach manually myself to them.
Got it.
Which is basically what these outreach agencies do anyway, is they're just manually outreaching to the people. So I just add the websites in there. So I've got my competitors. I've got look at their referring domains. Obviously, you're not going to get a link from Tech Radar, but you might be able to get a link from a blog or etc. I'm looking at the anchor text that they're sending, and the context of their article, what they're writing about, and I'm just trying to get a similar link from their site. And like I said, so with this previous site, I maybe had a list of 100 competitors, because it was the whole niche was broad. So I started out with a subtopic, and then I branched out a little bit out of that. But while I was doing it, everything was within the same niche. All the competitors within the same niche. So theoretically, I could have carried on building the website. I could have carried on scaling it forever, but not forever, but for another year or 2 years or whatever. But like I said, you get to that point of like, I want to work on something else now.
Well, you're reading my mail. I want to talk about, coming to the last month of owning the site, and one side says, hey, you've kind of got a site that is clearly growing dramatically, and why not continue to pour more fuel on that fire? You've got another side of the coin that says, this is a great opportunity to, like you talked about and hinted at the beginning, take some money and use that to fund new projects, be able to take that big cash hit and now invest in writers and not have to maybe do the same type of grind. I mean, just talk about why you ended up deciding to sell the site, and again, trying to think about people listening and how they can start to process through some of the questions or variables on the table when they have a site like yours.
Yeah, I think it's two different approaches of again flipping sites for a living, or I have other friends that want to build and grow the revenue. There's nothing wrong with either way. I don't think. It's just that previous update in December, in the Google update, loads of sites got smashed, like completely obliterated. Loads of affiliate sites got smashed, and probably made me a little bit jittery. The thought of the sites that got that, like Gear Hungry, Improv, there's loads of those sites. They didn't just get 40% traffic less or 30% traffic. They got like 95 or more percent traffic. So for me, my plan was I'm kind of building sites for money, but also I want to kind of enjoy it. Mm-hmm. That site, I was kind of done with it. I thought I can take this will be my last year's income and next year's income from work. I can cover the salary. And yeah, it was really just, you get a little bit tired. But like I said, with this kind of strategy that I use, you're writing articles, you're working on it. I just wanted to work on something else, moving on to something else.
So what are you working on now? Obviously that sale closed a little while back. And, did you go out and start, pick up 4 or 5 more age domains and kind of do the same approach where you seeded those, waited until one caught and went all in on that one? Or, has your strategy at all changed since you made that sale?
The thing is that with SEO, a lot of people worry that if you abandon a site, it's going to die or something like that. So with these sites that I put up at the same time, I put 5 up at the same time. And then I abandoned the other ones to work on this site. When I sold that site, I just came back to the other ones. They had aged a year, which is a massive benefit. They weren't ranking amazingly, but had something there to work with. So I picked one of those up, scaled that up a little bit. 2 of those up. And you scaled them up to, they're making like, one's making a couple $100 a month, another one's making a couple $1,000 a month. And I'll be honest, I've been a little bit lazy since after selling it. But I'm working on a new site. So like I said, I put up a new site the end of last year, probably August, September time. And I've just been loading content onto that. And it's starting to pick up now, January, February. So that's my main focus moving forward, is trying to do the same thing again, drop everything else and work on this one site. But like I said, it's a little bit different now that I have a bit more freedom to work on different projects, that I can outsource stuff and pay writers, because it gives me more time more than anything else. But my plan is to probably try and stick with the same time frame moving forward of building one site, flipping one site per year. Stick with the same thing of spend the 4 or 5 months, knuckle down, get content up. If I write my own content and outsource some as well at the same time, I can get even more content, let that age, and then flip it the following year.
Well, as we start to wrap up, I mean, congratulations on this site's success. From when you put your first article up on the site to when you sold it, what was that, just to kind of put a fine point on this site and our conversation, from first publish to sale, 12 or 13 months?
Yeah, 12 months.
12 months.
The site, it took I sold it with Empire Flippers. It took 5 or 6 weeks to go through. But from listing the site, it sold within, I think, 3 weeks or something like that. And that was April. So it was a pretty quick turnaround. And I don't think it would have been possible with a new domain. It might have been possible, but a lot less likely than finding something that had some kind of age to it.
It's amazing. It's really great. It's it's harder especially when you're just starting out, to hear stories like, oh yeah, I started this site 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And even though that still has a great runway, it can be a little harder to get that motivation on a Tuesday night or a Saturday morning. But 12 months, very strategically focused, and obviously put in a ton of time and effort, but you had a wonderful sale and kind of, life-changing amounts of money for a lot of people. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. No, thanks. The thing is, I have those sites as well. Like same as everyone else. Like I started in 2015. It's not like like I'm brand new to it. I have those sites. I've built sites before. I've built failed sites. I've had my sites been smashed by algorithm updates. It's not like I've literally just started last year and kind of hit the ground running. It's more learning from past experiences and putting that all together with the focus more than anything, and really trying to uncomplicate things. Is if you have the keyword research is right, you stick within one niche, and you're just producing not even amazing content, not expert content, just good content that's better than what's already there, then that's pretty much all it is. For this style of niche site, content site, that's pretty much all it is.
Well, don't forget about your first site. You flipped within a month for a profit on Flippa. I mean, I don't know. You might be underselling yourself here.
That one. I saw it the other day. A couple months ago, I saw it, and
it's still around.
It's grown a lot in that time. So I think it's probably worth a lot more now. And there's always that thought with like when you sell a site, are you worried that the next person's going to take it and scale it up?
Yep, the one that got away.
Yeah, for me, that's not even. I just chop it off. Like it's as long as it's not mine anymore. If they grow it, then that's great. I'm happy for them. It's a different project.
So how can people follow along with what you're doing? Where's the best place for people to stay up to speed on what you have going on?
Yeah, I'm just on Twitter, so I'm not really selling anything on any clients or anything like that. So come speak to me on Twitter. I started a newsletter on there, just talking about expired domains. So I've been playing around testing with these expired domains for years before getting to this point. So I just talk about how to find the right expired domain, what you should be looking for, what you should be avoiding, stuff like that, if people want to get started with that.
It's a pretty easy handle to follow. It's your name, Ted French, on Twitter. I just looked it up to make sure I had it right. And I can vouch. I mean, you might only write 800 to 1,000 word articles for your site, but your emails are a lot longer than 800 to 1,000 words. They're really good.
It's the freedom of not having to think about SEO. Like when I'm writing these emails to people, I'm not even thinking about SEO. I'm not thinking about any keywords or anything like that.
Yeah, no headers, no H2s, no H3s.
It's quite a nice feeling to write without having to think about what the structure or everything else. But yeah, I'm just trying to. I have a bit of experience in it now. There are still people that have been doing what I've been doing for 15 years or 20 years. They've been doing it for a long time.
Sure.
But yeah, I just want to make sure people don't make any of the same mistakes that I've made, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because to get to this point beforehand, there's been a lot of mistakes and a lot of things I've done wrong. I've spent a month on a site that's come to nothing. So it is possible to do this kind of all-in thing that I've done and it go wrong. Or you can invest $5,000 in content for a site that doesn't really work. So it is important to get the knowledge first to know how to do it, but you can gain knowledge forever. You can keep learning and learning and learning. There's so many different podcasts, etc., to watch, but it does just take the action at some point.
Well, people should definitely, I mean, if you're thinking about an age domain strategy to kind of jumpstart, your website, your newsletter is great. And I've been on it for a little while and it's been really great. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to go sign up for that. So, well, Ted, thank you for coming on. Congratulations on this site and success. And, but thanks for sharing the details, the strategy that you used and kind of how you navigated through it. So it's been a real treat to have you on. There's so many great things. I still have my notes. I don't even know how to say it. Archivarics, is that right? Archivarics.
Yeah, I don't know either. Archivarics.
Yeah, man, that was a takeaway. I love that one. I'm going to go figure that one out.
No, it is pretty good. It is good. It can take a little while to get used to it, but literally once you just upload the file, you can just enter the code in, and it will download the whole site for you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, if anyone got any questions, then just comment below and I'll answer them.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining, everybody. And Ted, we'll talk to you again soon. So thanks again. Thanks again to Ahrefs, today's show sponsor. And again, if you're looking for more Google traffic, if you're struggling to rank, you're not sure what to do about it, and the idea of hiring an SEO agency is just outside of your budget, they have a free tool. It's called the Ahrefs Webmaster Tools. It's an amazing resource. It's going to help you audit your website. It's going to prioritize the needed changes you need to make to improve your search rankings. Imagine what you could achieve as more traffic starts to come in. Beyond the leads and the sales, you're going to have Ahrefs Webmaster Tools helping you analyze your backlinks from other websites. They're going to help you find the important people that are referencing your content, can help lead to future partnerships, collaborations. You get the hint. The idea of getting Google to work for you sounds a bit too confusing. Ahrefs also offers a lot of helpful tutorials on search engine optimization. So the time is now. It's a free tool, and you can go grab it by visiting ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools. Again, that's ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools. We've included a link in the show notes. Thanks again to Ahrefs for sponsoring today's podcast. How many times have you wanted to throw your computer at the wall because, well, SEO can be frustrating. And no matter how hard you try, you're still not showing up where you want to on Google. So maybe you throw money at the problem by outsourcing your SEO needs. And then you've ended up wasting money and you're still stuck in SERP limbo, unwillingly hanging out on page 2 or 3, far from potential customers. Meet Surfer, an AI-driven content intelligence tool that takes the guesswork out of SEO. With Surfer, you can do keyword research in minutes, create a 360-degree content strategy with their planner, write an article while checking your SEO content score in their editor, and monitor your progress with their audit tool post-publish. Let Surfer's AI focus on getting you to page 1, while you focus on growing your business and making your customers happy. Visit surferseo.com and stop worrying and start ranking.